Welcome to Forgotten Hollywood. Here is the Hollywood backstory. The issue of mental illness, and particularly the psychology related to Alzheimer's disease, has a long history in Tinseltown. One of the earliest examinations occurred in the post-war cinematic classic The Snake Pit, starring Olivia de Havilland. The motion picture earned the starlet an Academy Award nomination. Another successful film tackling the highly implausible reversal of a disease of the mind in a screenplay that belonged in the science fiction genre was Charlie, based on the literary triumph Flowers for Algernon with Cliff Robertson, an awards favorite. But it did little to initiate credible medical advances in the field. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Shine, and particularly Awakenings, featuring Robert De Niro and Robin Williams, provided more realistic, if dramatically sinister plots. More recently, dementia has been the focus in modern classics, such as Away From Her, with Oscar nominee Julie Christie, and in 2014, Still Alice, with Julianne Moore, who was awarded a statuette for her portrayal. Despite gobs of attention and accolades, Hollywood's major productions unfortunately define the issue of Alzheimer's disease and mental illness with broad brush strokes. The real issue is the day-to-day details, which make these related diseases so insidious and so tragic in my estimation.
Welcome to Forgotten Hollywood, streaming on the Therapy Cable Channel. Here's your host, Manny Pacheco.
Welcome to our program. Forgotten Hollywood shares America's story through the eyes of actors and filmmakers through Hollywood's golden age. The Forgotten Hollywood journey is a combination of a radio show that airs on 90.1 FM KBPK, an award-winning book series, and a blog site that I'd like you to visit at ForgottenHollywood.com. Our esteemed guest today is acclaimed Belgian filmmaker Maxime Brulein. Now a resident of Los Angeles, Brulein attended the prestigious UCLA Film School. In 2009, he started 2M Films, a boutique production company with his husband, Mark M. Thomas. Under 2M Films, he has written and directed close to a dozen short films, including Hitchcock's Homage, Trouble on a Plane, the modern Gothic fairy tale, One Note Too High, and his most recent effort, The Painting, which is receiving all sorts of attention from the prestigious film festival circuit. Another of his productions, Gone, a film about Alzheimer's disease, recently won the Best Drama Award at the McMinnville Film Festival. Welcome, Maxime, to our program.
Thank you, Manny.
Forgotten Hollywood is honored to have you on our initial program, and you have been one busy person with your short films. You have really taken short films, and you are traveling the entire film circuit. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Yes, well, I've made about 12 short films right now. Well, actually 13. I made 12 before, of course. And the 13th one is The Painting, which is the latest one. And it's a silent comedy. And it's 6 minutes. And it's basically, the whole movie is seen through the eyes of a painting hanging in a museum. And all the different people that come in front of it and have a different reaction. And then only at the end is the painting revealed. And do we know what it is?
Right.
And it's been super successful in festivals, I think because it has the international language of film, and it's just images. There's no dialogue to deal with. There's no subtitles to read. So
tell us about some of the festivals you've been going to. I mean, obviously, you've got quite a schedule.
Yes, well, the very first one was last year. Its European premiere was actually in Belgium, right, and where I lived and where I grew up. So that was a really cool event to go to. And then after that, it's been in several festivals in France. It's been in Italy. It just won an award in Canada back in January. The last festival we went to was actually a few days ago, is the Sun Valley Film Festival in Idaho, where it was also super popular. I didn't expect it, but we sold out. The theater was completely full.
That's
and people
good
were
news,
talking about it in downtown Sun Valley. It was like, oh, are you the filmmaker of The Painting? everyone's talking about it. So it was really fun.
Now, you also recently, speaking of Belgium, you were in a Belgium periodical that was named, you were named one of the 50 most prominent filmmakers of the country, right?
Actually, not even filmmakers. It was 50 most prominent Belgians of 2014.
Wow. Tell us
Yes.
about that. Well, that's pretty exciting.
Well, I think the fact is that I got into the media a lot last year because I'm working on two projects, actually three projects that have to do with Belgium. One is my first feature called Postcard from a Palace, which is a mockumentary about a royal family.
A mockumentary.
Mockumentary. So Belgium still has a royal family, so it got a lot of attraction, a lot of media attraction for that project. And then there's another project which I'm really excited about and really passionate about. It's the biopic of Charlotte of Mexico. She was the last Empress of Mexico, and she happened to be the very first Princess of Belgium as well. And she became Empress at the age of 23 and was declared insane at the age of 26. So that's a script I wrote based on the letters I got to read, her private letters at the Royal Archives in Brussels. And we're now developing it as a feature film.
You know, when I see interviews of Ken Burns and people like that, they always seem to be working on more than one project, and it sounds to me like you're doing the same thing.
Sometimes I'm like, oof, I'm like taking on too much at the same time because every single project is completely different from the other one. So there's comedy, there's drama, there's murder mystery, so it's got everything.
Well, at the opening of our program today, we talked about the idea of Alzheimer's, and I, to be honest with you, was very critical about Away From Her with Julie Christie. Although she won a SAG award, and of course this year still Alice, and everybody's buzzing about Julianne Moore. But my criticism wasn't about their performances, which were quite good, obviously. But my criticism was the way the director looked at Alzheimer's disease, and you look at it a little bit differently. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick moment to look at a clip, and then we're going to talk about why you are able to capture things that I think directors have missed the mark on Alzheimer's disease. Let's take a look at the clip.
I am important. Hillary Clinton herself calls me on the telephone and tells me so. People in Washington remember who I am, and that's why they want me to come and work for them again. Did you know that I worked for the Department of Defense in such countries as Germany and Italy?
And the short film is called Gone. And of course, it's by our director here, our interview, Maxime Brulein. Tell us about Gone. What was your inspiration for Gone?
Well, my inspiration is my father-in-law, who passed away a few years ago, was diagnosed with, back then, like a few years ago, he was diagnosed with early stages of Alzheimer's. And how I experienced it, when you think about Alzheimer's, I think if you're not very familiar with it, lots of people think, oh, it's about a person that loses its memory and can't remember things. But it's so much more than that. He was basically confusing reality with fiction, you can call it. So he didn't know what was real, what was not real, and he started mixing it all up. And there's a scene in Gone where the patient, Cassandra, goes to the doctor, and she's being asked simple questions, and she gives the doctor completely different answers.
And she does it on purpose, it seems like. It seems that she shows disdain. That's something you never see in those feature films. You really picked up on that, and I picked up on that, and I was very impressed, actually.
I did. Well, so that scene was actually based on something that happened to me and Russell. So my father-in-law, who after he came back from a doctor's visit, and my husband, Mark, so his son, had called me before, and he says, my dad, they asked him who the president of the United States was, and he answered Arnold Schwarzenegger without even thinking about it. So he's like, oh my God, he really has it. And then I talked to Russ. We were together, we were on our own, and he tells me, they asked me who the president was, and I told them Arnold Schwarzenegger. They really must think I'm stupid. So he was playing along. although he did realize that he had Alzheimer's, but to him, being asked such a stupid question, I mean, he thought it was ridiculous.
So what it sounds like to me is that he thought that the disease itself was more of an inconvenience than actually an affliction.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right,
And I
okay.
think most movies, to me, up until now, really deal about how the family and the friends deal with the disease, and it's not really seen through the point of view of the patient itself, how they go, what they go through, and still Alice did kind of go there, but I think that's only one of the few movies that did.
Right, right. Now, the other thing that I noticed that you touched upon that really isn't mentioned, and you actually mentioned it in the interview here, is that when he receives these letters that he mixes fact and fiction, this is kind of elder abuse if you think about it. When you get this junk mail from, let's say, a government official and saying, well, you know, I want your help, I want you to be part of our administration, I want you to donate money, that is a form of elder abuse, and you actually touched upon that in Gone.
I did. I mean, there is elder abuse, like you say, but there was also the fact that when he was receiving one of those letters, he would give money. He would automatically give money to those organizations, what resulted in getting more junk mail. And maybe they didn't do it on purpose, but it escalated that way. But there's people who will abuse those people. They know the situation and they'll just abuse it. So I kind of put that in the movie.
And you did put it in the movie so well. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back on Forgotten Hollywood with our guest, Maxime Brulein, who's a director from Belgium. And when we return, we're going to ask him a few more questions about this fabulous short film called Gone.
Hi, welcome to Audlante. This is Audlante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Audlante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona del Mar, which is a confidential location, we're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
And we are back to Forgotten Hollywood. We're here with Belgian filmmaker Maxime Brulein. We're talking about his short film Gone, as well as some of his other works that he's doing. And the other thing that I noticed about the film, we were discussing some of the things that you seem to tackle that other feature films don't seem to pick up on with Alzheimer's disease, was the fact that an Alzheimer's victim happens to always seem to repeat themselves. They'll talk to one person, say something, talk to another person, say the same thing, talk back to that same person again that they just spoke to, and say the exact same thing. They're very repetitive.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, that was the same thing with my father-in-law. And we did realize that if he would tell us a story, it was like that story was not finished. He needed like a closure with the story. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I was able to actually close the story, and he would never tell the story again. One of the best examples, when I met him, he was telling me, well, he knew I was a big Hitchcock fan, so he told me his meeting with how he met Joan Fontaine back in the 1940s.
Right.
And it was a wonderful story, and he would keep telling me that story. And so one day, Joan Fontaine was still alive, and I wrote her a letter and told her the whole story that my father-in-law had told me, and sent her 2 stills of Suspicion, my favorite Hitchcock movie. And within a week, she sent me those pictures back, one signed to me, and then one signed to Russell. And I gave it to him for his birthday. And after I gave it to him, he never mentioned that Joan Fontaine story. So the story was closed, and that was it.
That is a remarkable story. Oh my gosh, that is a really remarkable story. I didn't realize that that's all it would take with an Alzheimer's patient, was to be able to have that closure.
I think if it was in the early stages of Alzheimer's, this would still work. I think later on, they would still repeat stories. But that was one of an example where I was actually able to like give closure to one of the many stories he had.
And one of the things that they do mention, for example, in Away with Her, and you mentioned too, that you actually captured, was that Alzheimer's victims will remember things that happened 30 years ago, but they have problems with what happened yesterday.
Yes.
So that's something that's well documented.
Yes.
Now, let's, on a lighter note, you just mentioned Alfred Hitchcock as one of your heroes, and you obviously have a real affinity towards Hollywood's golden age, the forgotten Hollywood.
I do.
And tell us some of the things that you happen to like about classic cinema.
Well, to speak about Alfred Hitchcock, to me, he's the ultimate director to me. I was, as a child, when I was 12 years old, I was given my first camera, and it was an 8mm camera. It had no sound. So all the movies I had to do, all the movies I made did not have sound in it. So everything was in the images, just like the painting I just did. And that's how Hitchcock started. I mean, he started in silent movies, so he knew how to tell a story without using words. And he didn't even need title cards in between images or between scenes. It was all set in the images. So that's why I love his cinema, because he can tell a whole story without even having to use a single word. One of his movie making rules was you could play any of his movies anywhere in the world, put it on mute, and the people will understand the movie. So that has always been my goal. So one of the short films I did was Trouble on a Plane. It's a murder mystery set on a private jet somewhere in the 1960s. And within 6 minutes, it's again 6 minutes, a murder happens. There's 3 suspects, and at the end of the movie, the murderer is revealed. Or is there one?
And of course, the title, almost similar to the title, Strangers on a Train. Exactly,
and that's what it's based on. So I basically did, for the titles, I took all the Hitchcock titles, Strangers on a Train, so I called it Trouble on a Plane, which is also Trouble with Harry.
Right.
At some point, I even considered of calling the movie Rear Window Seat. Because it's on a plane.
Seat. I love that. That's great.
And then all the names of the characters were also based on Hitchcock characters. I would use a first name from one Hitchcock movie and a last name from another, and then combine them. Mm-hmm. So you have, there's Eve Kaplan.
Right.
Which is from North by Northwest, although she's not called Kaplan because Kaplan is the guy that they're looking for.
George Kaplan, right.
George Kaplan, but Eve is...
Eva Marie Saint. That's
Eva
right.
Marie Saint's
that's
name.
Right.
And there's all kinds of little homages in that movie. I shot it the way Hitchcock would have shot it, so same angles, same colors. Fantastic score by a guy called John Longan, who immediately knew that I wanted to go Bernard Herrmann. I did the beginning credits as a Bass Soul homage, so it's all in there.
But you like more than just Hitchcock. I mean, you and I've had conversations in the past, and I know you're a big fan of, for example, James Bond. You love Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly. Tell us a little bit about their influences on you.
Well, the Audrey Hepburn passion, I could call it, is because she was born in Belgium. So her whole life she had a Belgian passport, although her mom was Dutch and her dad was Irish. But because she was born in Brussels, she had a Belgian passport for the rest of her life. So I always loved that. And Grace Kelly, always had a passion for her. I actually just bought a signed photo. I don't know if you know that, but I bought a signed photo of Grace Kelly and Prince Rainier.
Wow.
And it's signed Grace of Monaco. So by the moment she married Prince Rainier, she would never sign anything Grace Kelly anymore. It would be Grace of Monaco. she was the ultimate Hitchcock blonde, of course. So that's that connection. And James Bond, always been a huge fan. I think the first movie I saw, I was 12 years old. It was Octopussy. So I grew up on Roger Moore, and of course started appreciating Sean Connery, Timothy Dalton, George Lazenby, and now Daniel Craig, and Pierce Brosnan, of course.
You know, it's funny you mentioned Roger Moore. A lot of people like to poo-poo him as a Bond, and I always loved him as Bond. I always thought that he had Bond with a sense of humor, much more so than even Sean Connery, who had a good sense of humor with it.
Yes.
But I really liked Roger Moore as
I
Bond.
love Roger Moore, and I think what I like is that so many people will ask me, "Who's your favorite Bond?" And I think it's Roger Moore because he was the very first one that I grew up with, but none of them tried to imitate the other. So Roger Moore did his Bond, Sean Connery had his, and then Pierce Brosnan did not try to imitate Sean Connery or Roger Moore. They always did their own Bond, and I appreciate that. And when you watch interviews with Roger Moore, you'll see how the man is so down to earth, and he doesn't take himself serious as an actor at all.
And he was also the oldest Bond too, right?
He was the oldest Bond. He was actually older than Sean Connery. So by the time he started, I think he was already in his 40s. So he's actually, I believe he's 2 years older than Sean Connery. So.
Any other influences that I missed on? Because you seem to have really grasp and capture in your short films Hollywood's studio era, which is really something that's, that young filmmakers really don't have a sense for.
Other influences. I love Billy Wilder. Same thing. I think it's because he was an immigrant from Europe when he came here, and English was not his first language as either. But look at the amazing movies he's written.
Oh, Double Indemnity and
Sunset Boulevard.
Some Like It Hot. Oh, absolutely. And you make a good point about the fact that he immigrated, but he immigrated because of what was going on at the time, the politics of the day, and
yes.
We were lucky to get him because of that. Mm-hmm. So that's a great. He's actually one of my faves. So I'm right there with you on that one. We've never had that discussion, so I'm glad we had it today. We only have about a minute left, so if folks want to see your shorts, because I think short films are hard to find. They're hard to see. And I've had a chance to see a number of them. I've had a chance to see The Painting. It's fabulous. Gone is really, I think, about as accurate a tale about Alzheimer's disease that I think I've ever seen on film. And I'm not saying that because we know each other. I really believe that. Where do they get to see your films?
Well, The Painting is now doing the festival round, so it's not available online because we're not allowed to have it online. Otherwise, festivals won't accept it. But many of my short films can be seen through my website, which is 2M Films. So TWOM and then films.com. And if you click on the films page, you'll see all the little posters of all the short films. And then you can just click on it, and some will play. Some just go to the IMDb page. But most of them, you'll be able to watch them, including Gone and Trouble on the Plane as well. So I would suggest you just go on that website.
That would be fabulous. Well, you know, this was a really quick episode. It went by fast. I thank you for having us here with you to discuss your fabulous short films. Maxime Brulein, of course, with his latest film, The Painting, and I'm looking forward to your mockumentary.
Postcard from the Palace.
That's right, exactly. And thank you for joining us on Forgotten Hollywood here on Therapy Cable. And remember, let's never forget. I'm Manny Pacheco.